Hello everyone, welcome again to another edition of Insane in the Fembrain.
Insane in the Fembrain.
Greetings everybody. I hope, again, I know I say this all the time, but I genuinely hope you're all well. I hope you're doing fine. I hope the things aren't getting to you too much, and you know I hope that you've all got someone around you that you can reach out and have a chat with. You know, it's important. It comes up a lot on Insane in the Fembrain and Insane in the Membrane. We communication comes up a lot all the time. So I hope that you do have people to reach out to. And thank you to everyone that has reached out to me. I get some lovely messages from people. Thank you for doing that. It's really nice to chat to you. It helps me as well. I like to have a chat to people, and it makes me realise that I'm shutting myself away, and I shouldn't. And so thank you for reaching out. Appreciate that. This week, I was joined by Jade Adams's best friend, Rebecca Wyn Kelly. She's a fine artist. When I met her, she was the owner of Milgy, which was the original sort of vegetarian restaurant in Cardiff. So if anyone from Cardiff, I love Cardiff. I've got a lot of love for Wales. Wales gets a lot of stick, and I don't know why, because it's such a beautiful place, filled with beautiful people. It's stunning, and I'm glad that they shut the bridge to stop us idiots taking the virus over there. They're good people, and Rebecca is one of the best I've ever met. She's so lovely, and I got to speak to her at the beginning of the lockdown. She was staying with her parents out in West Wales, over sort of Aberystwyth way. And her dad is a fantastic artist and in his own right. And Rebecca's like sort of following in the footsteps. She's a very interesting woman, very talented, and really easy to talk to. It was really nice to have a proper chat with her, because we've chatted before, but you know, we're normally three sheets to the wind, and so it becomes more of a heated debate rather than a sort of a level-headed chat. But it was really nice to speak to her. As a trigger warning as well for this one, we do talk about suicide. There's no way I can sort of sugarcoating that. We talk about that. We talk about the effects of suicide, and you know, to the people that are left behind. So just so you know, just before you get into it, in case anyone's listening and you know they've got that going on, just so you know, we are respectful throughout. So don't think we're not. You know the score. You've been listening to this for a long time. So just so you know. But yeah, it was really nice to have a chat with Rebecca. She's a top person, and it was great. So let's stop me waffling. Here's Rebecca Wyn Kelly. So
West Wales, that's where I've been. It's really rural and
beautiful up there.
It's beautiful. It absolutely is. So why wouldn't you want to go back there, really? However, Cardiff, filled with joy and friends. And yeah, it's really lifted my spirits to see people, actually.
I think that's
life affirming. It's been hard for lots of people.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's made us realise how sociable human beings are, and it's how we thrive and what we thrive on, and isolation is what kills us. It's so.
Well, it's used as torture, isn't it? And also, I think it's reassuring for all of us to realise that we are kind of tactile human beings, and the kind of subtlety of touch that we sort of experience every day with, just passing someone in a supermarket and, little tap on their back or excuse me or whatever. You don't realise how many times a day you're touched, and then when you're denied that, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So I have been hugging, unfortunately. There's been a lot of hugging.
Yeah, but I think we're all kind of because we hugged someone the other day, but we kind of, you go through the backstory first, and you kind of go, okay, yeah, we locked ourselves down straight away. We haven't really spoken to anyone. And then that person goes, yeah, same. We kept away from everyone. We've not been anywhere. We might have had it ages ago, but we're not contaminated now. And then we go, yeah, bring it in. Come on. Yeah. I'm sure we're fine.
And isn't it? But there are some people who aren't into it, and you know what? When you start a conversation with that person and we'll do what we're all doing, which is like, are you hugging? And then you kind of like see the smile in someone's face, which is like, yeah, of course we are. And then other people who are like, oh, actually I'm not. Yeah. And then you sort of start a conversation with that person, and you can't really concentrate because you haven't shared that like energy and those sort of endorphins that get released when you squeeze someone.
That's right. Yeah.
So
there's a lot of judgment. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of judgment as well when you're out. If you're, like, I went out the other day, I was in the supermarket and I took my mask off because my glasses were steaming up. so I couldn't see what I was doing. I literally just took it off for a minute, and I was just so my glasses stopped so I could just see what I wanted. And this guy walked past me like I just shat on his kids, and I'm like, all right, mate, chill out. You know, I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to see the gravy. Might want to just relax a little while.
Just trying to get my bisto, mate.
Just trying to get the bisto, mate. Relax.
Just trying to get the bisto. Yeah. Well, everything's changed, isn't it? It's like, what was life before COVID? It's difficult to sort of ask yourself that question, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
what was I mean, what was I into? What was I doing? It's all, everything's changed, you know?
Yeah,
everything's shifted. And I don't know, like for me, it's like, you know, or everyone, I guess, it's, when are the galleries going to open? When's the Arts Council going to be back up and running?
Yeah.
When do we get to kind of do the international residency? So it's been a lot of rethinking, I think, for everyone, really.
Yeah. It's been interesting seeing the you know, like with like comedy, live performances have gone, like music and comedy, and like you say, the galleries have shut down.
How are you feeling about
theatre.
that? Are you that, you know, like, because I guess when you're writing a show, or I would imagine when you're a stand-up, you know, and obviously I've seen a lot of stand-up in my time, and it's that kind of, you don't really know if a joke's funny until you share it with an audience, really, do you? So it's quite difficult to.
It's a weird
gauge.
one.
Yeah.
You kind of. Well, it's like with you with art. You know, you the longer you're in it, the more like you know what a good piece of art looks like, or what a good piece of art is like to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like with comedy, you kind of know. You go that you there's something in your brain just goes, that's a good idea. That's got something that has, and you keep chipping away at different gigs. You sort of like you slide it in amongst all the stuff that is already working, and then you work it out that way. And these little ideas, and so it's like anything really. The longer you do it, the more skills you create. But having it taken away, having it taken away in the speed that it was taken away in as well. It was like overnight, 20 minutes.
Savage, mate, savage.
Yeah, and it had gone. Everything, the 15 years I've been working up to where I was at, just gone. And you're like, holy shit, all the sacrifices that were made, all the relationships that have crumbled, all the people that I've fallen out with, all the things I've built. Everything that you were you go, fuck, it was all built on sand, like that old cliche, isn't it? That castle's built on sand, and you're like, shit. And then you see like the government talking about, you know, we're not, you know, that everybody needs us. They need galleries, and they need museums, and they need art, and they need comedy and music. But it's the last thing that kind of gets invested in, you know. Especially in a Tory government. Oh God, I know. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's
well,
like,
I guess we don't really know. I mean, I'm filled with fear about what's to come. You know, there've been many amazing, many sort of things that have come out of COVID that I've been sort of hoping for and sort of campaigning for a while. Like, you know, stop the flights and kind of shop locally and look after yourself and slow down. You know, that's one of the reasons I sort of quit the restaurant. Really, the restaurant industry, because, you know, life is like takes over, and we're sort of built on this kudos of like, how busy are you? You know, oh, I'm 60 hours a week busy. Oh, I'm 80 hours a week busy. Oh, that must mean you're more successful and more kind of relevant than me. So, you know, I sort of felt quite burnt out by that. And I think the whole world was burnt out by that. And, you know,
absolutely,
and you sort of imagined that, you know, it wouldn't ever be possible to get the world to slow down like it just has. So for me, it's kind of an interesting concept to watch other people kind of be forced into something that I was kind of trying to do personally, you know. And it's been great to share that with people, and, you know, finally talk to my friends, you know, who are normally really busy and het up and stressed out, for them just to be kind of, in a way, slightly, obviously there's fears and anxieties about the future, but to feel that little bit more relaxed about not having to compete all the time, you know.
Definitely.
I had a chat to a friend the other day, and he's a musician, and he said, you know, it's quite nice that everything's just like an even playing field. You know, you don't have to worry that band's getting a gig in a festival and you're not, or that person's just got a record deal, or, you know, sort of a leveler, isn't it, really? Which has been quite refreshing. Yeah.
I think that's it. You've seen, you know, I've seen people that are famous suddenly are popping up on podcasts, and we're having conversations with people that would have ordinarily been out of reach. Because, like you say, it's all been leveled. It's all like, oh shit, doesn't matter where you were, like you've just said about this band getting that gig or whatever. And when this happens, it's so universal and affected everybody equally. Like, oh shit, it's like, okay, yeah, right. I think that it really brought home how fragile human beings really are. That
Exactly.
How quickly someone was they literally just walked past somebody in a shop and now they're not here anymore. You're like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
That's quite something to get your head around. It's
it's been intense.
And it's made me contact people as well. And I've had contact from people that I haven't spoken to in a while. We just kind of were busy, and then they just reached out and they're like, "You're all right, mate." I'm like, "Yeah." And then somebody else, I'm like, "Do you need anything? Are you all right?"
Yeah.
And
exactly.
there was that positive stuff as well.
Well, I suppose that goes back to us sort of, having time to reflect. And I mean, I've spoken to you a little bit, touched on that before about Finland, and kind of like I went there in February, and the idea was to sort of be in silence for 3 days and make artwork, and that chance to sort of reflect and to really kind of go within yourself and switch off from the rest of the world and not engaged as you usually do on a day-to-day basis. And there's a lot of soul searching that gets done in those times. And I think that although we've still been chaotic with the amount of kind of access we have to, internet and online platforms, and that can feel chaotic on a daily basis or an hourly basis, or however often you decide to engage with these platforms. But ultimately we have all had time to think, think about what's important to us and to sort of let go of those feelings of the past, which were like, I must succeed, I must be richer, I must be, have more houses or more children or whatever that may be.
How easy was it? How easy was it for you when you went to Finland on that retreat to switch off, like you say, silence for 3 days?
It was really difficult. So, when you talk about silence, it's, it doesn't have, so, an opportunity to switch off from everything, we have verbal diarrhea. Most people do. A feeling comes into your mind or a thought, and you share it, and you generally share that with friends, and then you get a reaction from your friends, and they lead you on to maybe another feeling or encourage you to not feel that way about it. So, when you're there in silence, what happened to me, I mean, it might be different for other people, but, I kept hearing the sounds of people. So not voices and words as such, but like the sound of maybe someone like smoking a cigarette, or their footsteps, or how they sound when they brush their hair, or like really subtle kind of engaging sounds that filled me with kind of comfort, because it's challenging to be alone. And then what happened to me basically was that I was really struggling to find that silence, because it's chaotic. It's like a silent symphony, really. It's not. There's a lot going on. And then the only time I found silence was when I couldn't hear the sound of a friend of mine, and that stopped me. And then there was silence, and that was because I didn't remember the sound of her, because she had committed suicide over a decade ago, 30, maybe much longer. And it was only her that was able to silence me. And then that's where the work came, and that's how I was able to sort of like move forward. But very, very, very difficult to find silence. And even, I'm sure you've touched on meditation and well-being and kind of, body scanning and this sort of stuff, but you never really find it unless something, I guess, is as shocking as not remembering what your friend sounded like all these years later, and kind of feeling sad for that, because she wasn't in the sounds, she wasn't there causing mayhem and chaos. And I tried really hard.
Yeah. When we.
So what I mean, so the point is that it's like when you're allowing like life to rest, it does conjure up lots of emotions about, losses and grief and things like that. I think most people, contemplation.
So many people were commenting online about their dreams, how insane their dreams had become, because all their work had been taken away, or they were trapped inside indoors, and they were having to make it work, and
the theory behind that, wouldn't it be that, like, I guess we go out, say you go out in London on an average day, or Cardiff, or anywhere, and the amount of faces you see and just the things that are surrounding you, when you take all that away, you've just got yourself.
Yes.
So your dreams are gonna, I guess, like, you know, sort of connect to what's further
Well,
down
yeah,
in this.
exactly.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what. There was a piece in National Geographic about it, and they were saying that's what it is, because you've taken away all the other things. You're left with what the residue that's in your brain already. So you start remembering people from years ago that you've not thought about in ages, and music
Yeah.
it was all kind of, it was like you'd gone up in the loft in your brain and like, oh right, okay, let's sort this shit out. And so that's why people, so that's what they said, that it was a very, as you've said, it's, you're dealing with what yourself and what's in you. With when your friend, how did you cope with your friend passing away? Like, we've talked about suicide on Insane in the Membrane, and people, I've talked to people that have attempted it, thought about it. I've thought about it myself, you know, in some places. And
Sorry about that.
but it was just, you know, I spoke to someone else about this, and they were saying when you get those thoughts, you're not actually, 9 times out of 10, you don't really want to get rid of yourself. What you're trying to do is get rid of the bit that's hurting you. And so your brain's going, well, just like, it's like a reset. You go, like, if you just get rid of, you can't really comprehend the fact that if you kill yourself, there's no coming back from that. But what you're trying to do is kill the sadness. You don't really want to kill yourself, and that's what got me through it. And going, oh yeah, that makes sense. So why don't I try and deal with the bit that's that's creating those thoughts, rather than
and I
just
think
get rid of myself completely, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a difference between people who kind of don't want to live the life they're living anymore, and the people who don't want to live.
Yeah.
So I think, like you say, we've all been there. You know, I don't want this life. You know, I can't deal with this pain, or I can't deal with. And I think lots of the time for people, it's like, you know, especially people who suffer from mental health, you know, issues, and they kind of feel some sadness. They then start to feel guilty about projecting that onto other people, and how the world would seem better off without them, and wouldn't it be easier if I just wasn't here?
Yeah.
But, you know, of course, most of us are able to, well, you know, I'm really lucky. I don't think I've ever really felt like that. And I feel blessed to have not felt like that, because I've had many friends who have. And I think, you know, for her in particular, it was a very special, well, not very special, because it happens to lots of people. You know, she didn't feel human because of what had happened to her when she was a child, and how, you know, she had been abused, and she had decided as a young woman that she wanted to share her story. And, you know, this was pre Jimmy Savile and pre-historical abuse, and, you know, and she walked into that, you know, into the police station and told her story, and, you know, the answer was there's not enough evidence, and the world went on. And, you know, for her, I think that was the sort of, was the nail in the coffin, so to speak. God, that was an all the nail. Well, that was fifth gear over the cliff into, you know, into the sea, which is how she did it. But, you know, so how did suicide, you know, so I think that for her it was a necessary act, and
just sounded like, she just had that awful thing happen to her, and then,
well, this is it, isn't it, Rich?
The world's not listening to you. You're like, I'm telling you what's happened, and none of you are listening to me. What is the point?
I know, and you know, sadly, I'm experiencing that once again with a friend of mine who is going through quite a similar set of circumstances. And, you know, the fascinating thing about it all is you kind of think that these sorts of things, I don't know, like coercive control or child abuse, there's sort of things that might happen to other people, like maybe not like strong, powerful women that go to medical school and, you know, graduate from Central St. Martin's College of Art. You know, it's quite, for me, still feels sort of unexpected that I would know people that are going through this, or know women that are going through this. But, you know, abuse and suicide, you know, whether you're male, female, non-binary, or, you know, wherever you stand, no one's exempt from the pain that other people can cause you, you know, and that's a real shame, I think. And, you know, that's not a gender-based feeling. I think that's a human thing that, you know, really stresses me out, that humans have the capacity to hurt one another like they do.
Well, it seems to me, it's like, and this isn't saying that all men are beasts and all, but it's, I I've yet to meet a woman that hasn't had something awful happen to her when she was younger, or some kind of assault, or some kind of molestation, in some way, shape, or form, and it just like it gets me.
Yeah,
I start
it's
thinking,
some kind of Me Too. I think is probably a wide, like, I mean, the Me Too movement obviously highlighted, that every, like you say, most women, a huge percentage of women that you meet have experienced some kind of derogatory comments, or being looked at because you're being sort of treated as if you're not kind of capable of making a decision that could, like, but I think what I want to say though in all of this is that I've run a restaurant, and I ran it for 13 years, and I relied on both male and female, and all sorts of people to help me run the restaurant. And I will say that throughout all of that, I had so much respect from my male colleagues that really sort of stood behind me and were really into the idea that these two sisters had set up this restaurant. And I've been supported massively by men in the workplace, and kitchens are tough, they're really tough.
Yes.
I mean, you've already perhaps met some chefs, some female chefs, and they're quite intense environments. And most of the time, well, especially in my restaurant anyway, when I guess maybe I was the boss, which maybe helped, supported and loved by many of the male colleagues that I've worked with. But like you say, of course there were exemptions, and times where I was undervalued and underrated as a female employee and a chef, really. So but I think you're right about this. I think women have felt that sort of pain through the ages, but there are ways to overcome that. I feel like there are ways, and I don't know, for me, I think maybe education's like been one of those things. I mean, setting up the business and having the sort of reputation that it had, and building a brand like that, and then sort of deciding 13 years in that, or 10 years in, because the last 3 years of it, that it was like, I'm ready. I've said I want to climb this mountain. I've climbed it, and it's the wrong one. So what do I do about that? And for me, it was like, right, I re-educate myself. I go back to school, and I get my brain working, and then and then I'll decide what's right. Yeah. So, there are ways of kind of overcoming those feelings of insecurities as a female, or feeling how you're going to ever stand up or compare to a male sort of colleague or kind of peer.
Well, it's only been I mean, there's been, changes have been happening for decades now, but very slow changes, and we still haven't. We just still haven't moved on. No, exactly. You look now, and
we're not. It's not just accepted. Like if as I mean, I could get quite feisty about this, because for me, what's happening in my life now, I had a friend, I just graduated. And, I was young, and, I didn't really think anything like that. I was shocked by the story that she told me of her abuse that she suffered. And I was shocked that she took her own life because of that abuse that she suffered. And then roll on, I mean, however many years later, 15 years, 16 years later, I've got a friend who's close to me that's going through exactly the same thing. And you do sort of turn around and you think, well, what's the... we've just had this huge movement with Me Too, and like you say, we've come so far as women, and we've moved on, and we would hope that people would have taken that information on board and listened and changed. But the system is still screwed when it comes to being female.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't just walk into a police station and say this thing has happened to me and expect to be believed, and that that justice will be done for you.
We've got there's an American comedian called Chris D'Elia, and he's just had a load of allegations put against him from saying that he's been trying to solicit naked. He's been trying to hook up with people underage.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's true. I just know it's just come out, and there's loads of women have come out and accused him of this thing, and people are straight away. It's like people are going, "Well, you've got to prove it." You go, "Yeah, but let's listen to the stories first."
I know, yeah, exactly. how can you ask a woman to, record every conversation she has with a man just in case he decides to, make a pass at her or degrade her in some way or control her in some way? Like, it's not realistic to expect anyone to be recording their lives just in case someone attacks them or rapes them or, and like you say, it's like, where's the evidence? What does that mean? Do we not trust each other? Do we not trust people to sort of be...
Yeah.
I mean, no one makes up the kind of shit that, why would you make that up?
Well, that's it. It's
why
like
would someone make that up?
Why? Well, it's more than one person. So you go, well, surely there's no way that these people that are complete strangers to each other have gone, oh, yeah, let's jump on this bandwagon. Let's bring this bloke down. It's like there's got to be an element of truth in there somewhere. So that's what should be investigated. But I mean, social media.
But what are we protecting? Are we protecting masculinity? Are we protecting men's rights to treat women how they feel? Or, I don't know. I'm not really sure what society and culture is protecting. No,
there's a couple of people have been saying, well, it's funny that none of his colleagues, the other American comics, none of them have come out and said anything. No one's sort of getting involved, and and then someone else said, "Oh, all the British comedians that are mouthing off about this. I hope you're as vocal when it's your colleagues." And there's been a couple of times when I've been told something that is true, and I've said, "All right," and then I've been in a room with that person, and I've just said, "Look, mate, I've got to say something to you. Look, I've been told this, and I've got to know if it's true or not, right?" And they go, "Oh, no, that's not how it happened. This is how it happened." Or one of them just went, "I don't remember," and then that's the end of it. And you go, "Fuck, this is what?" So that's where it finishes. That's where they go, "Oh, he can't remember. He was fucked, so he can't remember." And you're like, "There's got to be more than that." Because now I've got this information about that person in my head that I have to be in a room with, and you're walking around. You just went. I mean, listen, I'm not saying I've never molested anybody. That's not what I'm saying. But I've been, I've probably done things in a relationship to get what I want. Subconsciously, you kind of like, as you do.
You grew up on porn, so you will be acting like that at some point.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, because I think what it is that we are human beings at base level. We're animals. And no one's talking about that. Everyone, like, yes, we're more sophisticated than your average, whatever. But we're still base level. We are still animals, and men are fucking beasts. Underneath all that shit, we are dealing with all these thoughts that come ricocheting into your head when you see someone. You go, right, am I attracted to that person? Do I want to have sex with that person? Do I want to talk to that person? How do I make that person be attracted to me? And then and women as well. Women like Jade and I have had this massive conversations over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. We were talking about, when you first get together, you portray yourself as the perfect person that person wants. So we met, and Jade was like, and I'm saying to Jade, "Oh, I'm into this," and she's like, "Oh, me too." And I'm like, "I'm into that." She's like, "Yeah, me too. I'm into this." She's like, "Oh, yeah, me too." And then you get into it a couple of years later, and then Jade's like, "Listen, that thing I said that I was into, I'm not really that into it, to be fair, and I don't mind doing it now and again, but it's getting a bit much when you want to do it all the time." And you're like, "Oh shit, I had no fucking idea." So it's, we're animals. And I think that's what we need to,
exactly. We are animals, and I don't know, like, the sex, men and women, like you say, different beasts potentially.
Yeah.
But also, I touched on it just a second ago where I was like, well, you are going to have thoughts like that about women because, it's so acceptable for boys to what, if a 13-year-old boy gets caught wanking by his mum, it's like, oh, let's have a laugh about it. Oh, he's just, just caught him, he started on his sexual journey. Well done, son. Like you very rarely hear a mum say, "Oh my God, I just caught, Janine masturbating."
Yeah, it's almost Well,
yeah, or that it's like that. Again, it's culture. It's how we grow up in a culture. So you've got things like porn, and then, you know, just the other day I was having drinks with friends. Like everyone is in their 30s, and the word clitoris came into conversation, and a flippant joke was made by a friend of mine who is very intelligent and he's very creative, and, you know, he's a good friend, but he just remarked like, oh, what's a clitoris? Where's that? And I just thought,
Wow.
are we still like, you know, like, but this is the point, that it's like that men have all of the chances to talk about their sexual desires, and they, you know, and I think if women and men equally talked, and we sort of, it wasn't this sort of like potentially male dominated need to like shoot your load, that like that's the most important thing during sex, that a male ejaculates, then perhaps we'd all be having a lot more sex, especially people that had been in long-term relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not really, I mean, it is guys' faults, but then it's not too, because we're all guilty of allowing this culture to have been created around us, which makes it complicated. You know, it does make it complicated for anyone involved with that. And how as a female you're ever supposed to compete with those images of women that young men have been looking at right up until the point where you enter into their life as a very naive and non-experienced female, because, you know, you don't get given a porn mag at 13 and, you know, and say this is how it's done. Men kind of, boys do in a way. I don't know. Is that right?
No, it's right. Well, do you know what? It was. I think it's worse now. Obviously, it's worse now because porn is so accessible. There's so much of it, and there's everything. You put anything into a search engine, and you will find what it is you're looking for. Guaranteed. And it'll be the most weird and extreme, whatever it is you're into, right? You'll find it. Like hedgehogs dressed as Santa. There'll be some fucking mad shit, right? There'll be something like that. And it's like, but it wasn't like that when I was a kid. You kind of hold, you know, you'd find a
Did you have like my uncle used to have these like porn mags. He sort of, you know, there's a lot of time between him and my mum. So he was like 18 when we were born, you know. So he had this drawer full of 80s mags with like girls with like hairy muffs and sort of like perms and stuff, and that was it. That was his little stash, and obviously that's all you had access to. So you are right, you know. I guess it's the same. Now there's anything and everything you want to look at. Yeah.
So if I was a teenager now, I'd be dead. I'd be dead. It would, you know, it shouldn't
from
be
just the overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
Access.
You know, I remember when I was a kid. I mean, the thing is with me, the thing I like wasn't in these magazines. Jade and I spoke about this the other week. We had a bit of an epiphany, a bit of a realization about stuff. So the thing is with me, what I was into was I just like to see women. Like, so the teachers at my school, the reason I wasn't very academic because I was so distracted because the women were dressed as they were in the 80s in skirts and tights and things like that. And that's what I like, is that I don't like to see women undressed and spread all over the bonnet of a car. I quite like that kind of conservative looking teacher kind of look, like sort of secretary look. And we had this massive realization, oh fuck yeah, no wonder I couldn't concentrate, because the very thing that I'm into was in my face every single day.
Yeah, that must have been really hard.
It was fucking brutal, and I couldn't concentrate. I was just dealing with these thoughts in nearly all of my lessons.
Yeah.
And
so do you think was that like was it particular I guess these were sort of older women, if they're dressed quite conservatively. Was it like every lesson? Did it matter whether it was a particular teacher? Because I think as a female, you know, when you're young, it's like one person you've got completely a crush on them, and it's like, I love, you know, so I won't mention any names, but, you know, I forever, and that's it. And you're in love, and that's, you know, the only thing you can do is be in love with that boy, and like until you kiss him, or until, you know, until you're married to that person. You know, I'm talking school years here. Yeah. But, you know, it didn't stop me from sort of, you know, concentrating on my work in school, or, you know, I mean, I can't imagine how that must have felt for you to have this thing that distracted you so incredibly from your schoolwork that you couldn't get on with it.
It was. I felt shame.
Yeah.
I thought there was something wrong with me because everybody else was finding pornographic magazines up the park, and they'd all be sitting around going, "Oh, look at that," and I just wasn't interested. Yeah, I'd go to school and I'd be sat in English or maths, and those were the two main problems. The main classes, and they were the two teachers. Because I think, like you've just said, men, yeah, we do kind of fall in love and go, oh yeah, you're the one, but we've always got an eye on
something else
over the shoulder as well. Do you know what I mean? It's so you kind of like, you're like, oh, you're the one, but maybe if you're not, there's that person over there. It's a weird, because.
But I just don't understand why are we after all it like the book like Men Are From Women From etc. Like we all know that men and women are different. So why that the world's moved forward and that there are many ways of living life and there are many ways of having a relationship. However, we are still trying to slot into this like very traditional way of being together.
Exactly.
I've had some long-term relationships, and they haven't worked out. We're all still friends, which is a credit to me as an.
Yeah, well done.
I don't burn bridges. No, credit to the exes. It's all good.
Yeah.
Forgiven and forgotten. It's all right. We're all getting on. But the reality of the situation is me looking back and having like retrospective on that, and then moving forward. Some people would say you didn't choose the right person, but I look around me and I see relationships, marriages, long-term relationships, long-distance relationships, all of this stuff, and 50% of marriages end in divorce, and this constant battle of like partners, whether that's male, female, and anything in between. It's this desire or this assumption that we can live together. Pay bills together, have children together, get married together, have sex together, watch films. Like everywhere you look, there's an expectation that that you're supposed to get on with this partner of yours and make it work in every aspect of your life, and it feels like that's an impossible task for anyone.
Yeah, well, I've read things on that, and they said it isn't natural, really, for human beings to be that way. We're supposed to sort of spend a bit of time together. And then you go off and then you do something, you meet somebody else or do something else. And I feel like you say those old values where you meet that person and then that's it. And it doesn't matter if you get any feelings for anything else or you're fed up with this or you don't, this isn't working, you have to stay together. And that's why a lot of parents from the generation of my parents are just so unhappy. Yeah. They have nothing but disdain for each other. Like their attitude is like, we're here now, fuck it. We might as well just get on with it. Like that's insane to have that mindset,
But it's the nature nurture, isn't it? It's like, it's obviously in our nature to want to, have sex with other human beings. That's part of what we're, like you say, animalistic. And then that's the nature. And we have to, keep the human race going. And we do that by, having babies.
Yeah.
And then you've got the environment side of it, which is like, okay, we live in a really supposedly very liberal world. You can kind of get on and do whatever you want and make your own decisions and choices. And then but within that you've got a situation where you don't really have a choice. It's seemingly you should have a choice to like nature says you want to have babies, and that's a thing that's built into us. Nurture tells us we can do what we want. However, regardless of the nurture, and people say it's okay, it's you're free to do what you want. Strong, independent woman. That there's still this like hang up about like not having children and not getting married and having to turn that into something that's like that you've got to be really proud of and really like act like proactive about and kind of have conversations with people, and people get deep and meaningful with you and they're like, oh, really, like such a loss, such a loss, such a loss not to get married, such a loss not to spend your life with someone. And I'm like, really?
There's definitely more pressure. We talked about this on an episode with Lizzie Basham, who's another friend of Jade's, and we were talking about.
Yeah, I know. What Lizzie's on the green? Lizzie?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Well, and I didn't.
Love Lizzie.
Well, she's amazing. I love her, and it was nice to have the conversation because I'd never really had a proper conversation with a woman about what it actually feels like to have a period, what it actually feels like to deal with that biological clock ticking away, tell it like subconsciously telling you that you're running out of time. You don't even know what you're running out of time for. But it's like, yeah, you're like, shit, I've got to have a kid. And you're like, well, I don't really want one, but you've got to. That's in. And men don't have that. Men just fling their seed about and go, oh yeah, well, whatever happens, happens.
But I think,
it's a funny
but
one.
I think men do make, I think they say they don't really feel like that, but they obviously do because babies are made. So there's whether they're kind of, because you have to and babies are made in very loving relationships.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
Decisions to have babies and to do that together and have that bond and bring a relationship closer and form a family and all of those beautiful and wonderful things. So I do think men have desires to sort of have children, but whether they potentially fully understand the consequences of that,
it seems to be more about. It seems to be more about.
It's a different thing. Right?
Seems to be more about legacy with men. Something that.
Well, that's like chefs, isn't it? Men cook for glory and women cook to nurture the family. It's the same sort of idea, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, and anyone
men
listening,
are glory chefs, women cook to feed their kids.
And anyone listening, any guys listening, look, I know I'm not being all down on men, all right? It's just, it's, I think men do need to have a good old look at themselves and be a bit more
Well, perhaps
honest,
society needs to take responsibility. Like schools need to take responsibility for teaching men, because if we're saying that men cause this a lot of pain and potentially, the facts are there. We're not making this up, No. Generally, when children are abused, it's men, or when women are abused. This is obviously not. But generally, it's the facts there. I'm not making that up. But why are we not? So if we're talking about there's a pandemic happening in the world, a global pandemic. Well, there's been a global pandemic of abuse and men, not behaving correctly for generations and generations. So society has to take responsibility for men, not just men.
Well, it's being honest with men. Like I've just said, you get these, and it might, someone will probably disagree with me, but this is what I think, is that we are battling with these animalistic thoughts on a daily basis. And men is like, can I eat it? Can I fuck it? If I can't do any of those things, then it's no good to me. And that's what needs to be taught in schools. That needs to be taught to men need to be sat down and say, look, this is what you're going to think. You're going to have these weird thoughts, right? And but they're not weird, because really most men think about them. They have these thoughts, and you need to know what to do when you get these thoughts, because if it's in your nature to think that, but you don't act on it, and this is why, and then be taught these things, because that a lot of men.
Yeah, we could do that, and we could equally ask women what they want. When it comes to the thoughts. So it's women might be having thoughts about wanting to, have sex with a beautiful guy, or bigger ideas than that, whatever your sexual fantasies are. But it's is there a space and an arena for men and women to talk about those very equally and openly and honestly? I don't think there is. And, maybe schools should start teaching maths and English and start talking about what it means to
humanity,
feel those desires. And maybe we need to sort of speak to men more about those desires and how overwhelming they are. Or perhaps if we allowed women a bigger arena to talk about what they wanted, then men's desires would be put to the side. And it would all be about what women wanted in, within a sexual relationship. So I think it's going to have to be a bit of both, right? And that's what I meant by society has to take responsibility for the men that we raise.
But that's what I'm saying. It has to go right back to when they're children, all the way back to when they're kids, and then that's because there's no point in trying to take men aside or take women aside now and go, right, we're going to. Because by the time you're in your 30s, you kind of you're formed, right? And you're. So that's what I found, being 48 years old and going back and thinking about things I've done in my past and going, right, okay, that was a bit shit. Okay, let's not do that going forward. That was a shit one. But but most men don't really. A lot of people don't have that. They don't even think about it. Think about things. They kind of go, well, this is just how I am. And they don't. There isn't any sort of self-analysis. And I think there needs to be more of that. People need to be it takes effort. It takes effort to make changes, and it takes effort to admit that you've been a bit shit in the past. And no one wants to admit that. Nobody at all.
I had to go to therapy. I had to go and get some therapy to allow myself the space to say that when I felt guilty about the breakdown of, relationships that that I'd been involved with, because it's very easy to just say, oh, he's a cunt.
Yes.
And that's the end of it. But or they were cunts. And like within that, you have to take responsibility. You do, for the breakdown of a relationship. It's not always one way. And you also have to take, like you said, the conversation that you had with Jade. Jade's just been honest with you and said she's lied about something to you for quite a long time. So, which is in relation to what she said she thought was wanted at the beginning, and, how things are now, and not lie. I mean, lie is a strong word, but you know what I'm saying? It's
I know what you mean. Yeah.
We say things, we enter into situations with people, and then suddenly you're trapped into this way of thinking, and you think, I've got to stay here because this is what we've sort of said. But if everyone just loosened up, perhaps, and really listened to how we all felt, like really listened. Yeah. Because, if someone tells you something and shows you something in relation to who they are and how they feel, then you have to listen. But we don't. None of us take responsibility for listening to other people's thoughts and feelings, because somehow it's affecting your day,
Yeah, well, like you said,
you've got some depressed person on your hands in the morning, and you're like, oh God, do I have to deal with you again today? And you're like, I just want to get on with my rosy day. It's hard to take that time.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's easy to say he's a cunt or she's a cunt, but it's harder to turn and go, why are they a cunt? What has got them? Why are they acting in that way? Why are they doing that? And then trying to figure it out, and
also, why are we doing it? Like, why am I doing this as a female, as a woman? Why am I tolerating this behaviour from someone else, or why are they tolerating that from me? Is that because society tells us to tolerate, or is that just because I'm in love? Who knows? We don't. It's all very kind of complex, and we wake up in the morning and all we're thinking about really is our own day, and you have rare people in life that don't do that, but I think the majority of us get up thinking, how is my day this is my day, it's no one else's, and it's very hard to step outside of the way you feel. It's about whether you can give someone else the space in your life to be sad and to be emotional, and for that not to affect you, and for you just to give them that moment for their demons to come and be present. And then hope that the next day when your black dog's barking at the door, that your friend or your partner is there to allow, your time. But it's difficult because we're all so caught up in our own woes.
And like you say, we're kind of like, oh, we did this yesterday. Why are we doing this again today? We dealt with this, and it... Yeah, you got.
But you might have dealt with it, but they didn't, and that's like...
Yeah, I know with Jade and I, in other relationships, because we haven't had it easy. We've been figuring things out, and by now, old me would have been acting up, and I would have been maybe sneaking around, maybe talking to people that I shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And now I don't. Now I don't want to, because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to cause pain to that other person, which is what I've done in other relationships. These people that cared about me and loved me, and I just shut all over them because I was wrapped up in my own bullshit. So this time, I'm not acting up and I'm not doing those things, but it's still, those feelings still have to go somewhere. That and sometimes Jade and I try and talk to each other, and it just ends up in a big blazing row. So then you start getting in this sort of like this whirlpool of, oh fuck, I don't know what to do. I haven't got the usual things that release me from this pressure. I can't talk to Jay, and then I don't know what to do. And I've been sat a few times when I've been going, I genuinely don't know what to say or do to make this feeling go away. Yeah. And then I don't know.
But again, but that, it's like there's that, and it's like, but then everyone has to kind of take responsibility in those situations. I know you and Jade very well, so when you talk about these things, I know what you're talking about, and I think that it's like, it's about taking responsibility for the action and the pain that you've caused other people, and then it's about moving on from that. And not just one person, again, this is me going back to the idea that I had to take some therapy to accept my responsibility in the breakdown of my relationship. So, you know, we all have choices. We all have options and ways to move forward and onwards from the pain we've caused ourselves and each other.
Yeah.
But in order for sort of you to change and for you to make those changes in your life, there has to be a sort of place where, you know, Jade allows that to happen too, because she'll have her own hang-ups about the last few years and what you guys have been through and how things are. And again, it's the sort of the self coming into it. It's like, no, you know, you're making me so, like I used to say that to my exes a lot, you're making me so unhappy, you know, and you're like,
I'm like, I'm sad.
You're making me so sad. I want to throw a Henry Hoover at your face. Something like that.
Yeah. Well, you have to,
and then you suddenly have to take responsibility for that. It's like, this person has inflicted pain on you. They have acted in a way, and the only thing you can control is the way you respond to that.
Hang on a minute. Jade, can you not do that for a minute?
Sorry.
Do you know what, right? Every time Jade does something, like we all have to be quiet or leave the room, she starts grinding
what's she
a
cooking?
fucking...
Donuts.
I don't know what she's doing. What is that? Is that the ice cream maker this time? It's pea soup.
Ooh, pea soup.
Yeah.
I haven't had pea soup for a while. Yummy.
Now she's all offended because I've told her to be quiet.
She's not offended.
All right.
She ain't offended. She deserved it. She's making pea soup in the background while you're trying to have a moment with her best mate.
Yeah, but I have to be quiet when she's doing stuff. And then when it's my turn, she starts doing the fucking washing.
Well, someone's got to wear the trousers, mate. So, you know, may as well be Jade. She's got a good collection.
We're looking for a sponsor to help get this brilliant conversation to an even bigger audience. Sponsoring the show, as well as a promotional trailer, means that your message and our message will be inserted into some of Acast's biggest podcast titles. Get on board and partner with Insane in the Fembrain. Go to pauldaniels.tv for more information.
You're in a huge transitional period where, like you said, you ran Milgie for, 11 years? And then...
13, yeah.
13 years. And then, that was your entire life. And you talked about getting into art and going and studying again. And then suddenly... you're now doing that, and Milgie is getting further and further in the past, and so you're now sort of finding out about yourself again. You know what you really are into, what you really like, who you really are. Because for 13 years you've been restaurant owner, Becky Wyn Kelly,
exactly.
but now you're artist, and it's. So you haven't really got time. You know, the last thing you need is some fella walking out, hello, and just you need to attend to my needs for a bit. And like, what?
Yeah. Well, obviously on reflection and having had quite a lot of time to myself over the last few years and not been in, big relationships of any description, the conclusion I've kind of come to is that I know exactly what kind of relationship I would like to have. It's whether society or the world whether that's sort of out there. And I don't mean like, I'm going to scour Tinder with this sort of like, this is what I want. And, like in the sense that we've talked about and we touched about it before. It's like, I cannot live. I know that I would not be able to live with someone day to day.
No.
Like it would be really hard for me, I think, after having worked so hard on like myself and having enough time for my friends and people in need, and then also myself, and kind of knowing how kind of swept off your feet you can get when you first fall in love, and that lustful thing that happens, and it's just like nothing else matters in the world. Nothing else matters than like the gazing into that person's eyes and like making love to, for the next 6 months or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And, after that runs out, then you're left with sort of the same thing, right? It's like, what are we eating for dinner? When are we going to see your parents to do this, that? Like, I just want a lover. So if there's anyone out there, get my details from
We'll put all your details on the end of this.
Put all the deets on, mate. If you want any photos, let me know. I'll send them over.
I was going to say, yeah, send us your favourite photo, the one you want out there.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be inundated now.
Oh, mate, I can't wait.
This is something else as well. This is something that people sliding into people's DMs, and this comes up a lot. Now I know I've had it once or twice.
Yeah.
I rarely get it, but Jade's fucking heckling me again. I've had it once or twice, but you haven't listened to the rest of what I'm about to say. Women seem to get it. Like I've had it once or twice. Women get that like times 50. Women get it. Seem to get it more. Like people signing the DMs. And this other thing as well. I keep seeing this thing popping up. Men asking for pictures of women's feet. And I'm like,
okay,
what the fuck is all this, man?
That's been going on for a long time. I had a friend that lived in Cardiff, and she made enough money to go travelling to Thailand by putting her feet into baked beans in a bath. So this is nothing new.
See, now, do you know what? Because we've talked about it.
Where were you? Where were you? You should have been right on that one, mate. She had loads of it. So you walk in, she'd be like, sort of like watching the telly as well as, and it was old school at the time. You know, they were these little digital cameras that used to sort of like upload to the computer, and she'd have these guys, you know, paying 20 quid for a sort of like Fuji film development of her feet, you know, in like roses or in a tied around her knickers or something like that, or like, you know, stuck in a cactus. Been going on for years, mate.
See, I know about all that. I used to read Bizarre magazine, and so I'm aware of it. But what blows my mind is that I like feet, but I don't message strangers and go, "Can I have a picture of them, please?" That's what I was talking about before.
But
about
isn't that just down to? But it's about women, and it's about people who are attracted to each other finding like a decent and kind of respectful way of kind of communicating that you might want to fuck them. You know, it's like it's, and again, I personally, I mean, I don't know, I think it does boil down to the fact that men are, you know, we are used to pornography just being at our, you know, and so it's sort of like, how are you supposed to compete with that? So guys just think, yeah, fuck it, I'll send a picture of my dick to her. So, I mean, and let's face it, they're not the most attractive of things anyway, are they? Dicks. No,
man. I've never seen what a photo of a dick and gone, that's a handsome thing.
Oh, mate.
Never
exactly.
ever.
That's
never ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I joke about that in my set, and I say, I think a lot of men see it as like fishing. Like they send the maggot out, they're like, yeah, I'm trying to see what
mate.
Maybe it's that.
And we know that all, you know, fly fishing comes different shapes and sizes. I mean, you know. Yeah. So it's that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's communication, and let's face it. We're not nailing it, are we? Because marriages are not. You know, 50% of marriages end in divorce. People are arguing. People are hurting each other. So, you know, we need to re-educate everyone. I think all of us need to find compassion and empathy for each other, and you know that's not going to work if one person is not like, you know, if they're like apathetic towards that, or if they're kind of like not willing to give and receive in that same way. I mean, there's no chance in hell unless we all sort of say, right, from now on in, this has to stop.
Yeah. Well, again, this has come up many times before. Communication is so important. Everyone's just shouting and hollering about, like with the trans issues at the moment, everyone's just shouting and hollering. Both sides, they're shouting and hollering and accusing and this, that, and the other. And you're like, this isn't getting anybody anywhere. None, on all levels, regardless of what you're talking about. No, you're not going to get anything done. The only way we're going to do this is if we sit down and we have a proper chat. Like Jade and I with therapy, like it's shown us that rather than calling each other names and shouting and hollering, if we just sit down and go, look, this is what's going on with me. And that's it's so important. It's so important. But I think again that needs to go back to when we're children. That needs to be taught.
Yeah.
That, you know, you're not going to do it now, but the next generation of children, now children, it needs to be taught to kids. It should be part of the curriculum.
Absolutely. You know? I mean, you know, Pythagoras' theorem's not got me anywhere in life, so I would have rather known how to deal with the suicide of my friend or the fact that someone just sent me a dick pic. I'd quite like to know how to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and that's how I think that's how we'd lower the numbers, because the numbers for the people that have committed suicide are so, they're obscene, and it breaks my heart. And I'm talking to you now about your friend, and you're like, what? As you were telling me, I was like, fuck, imagine getting to that point where, because I've been to that point where I've got no one to talk to. I don't know what to do, but really, there was something subconscious in me that never made me go the full way. It was always something that brought me back, whether that's my sons or something sort of brought me back. But to get to that point where you just feel like there's nothing left, you're like, there's absolutely no reason for me to be here. Just, it's heartbreaking, you know?
But that's, again, that sort of like, that is society failing these people, or, those people who, I mean, even friends that I've had that, are very, not rescue, I've been called a couple of times and said, look, I'm ready to go. Will you come?
Wow.
And, I've gone, and, the reasoning behind all of that was like, for as far as I could see with this particular person, was like, like unrecognized issues from a really long time ago, and like, self-medicating and getting so low that having dealt, like, it's about people carrying things from their childhood right the way through that they just can't deal with, and have never been given the time or the space to deal with it, and suddenly, as an adult, it's all too much because they've never really sort of had to could never really become an adult because they're too engaged with the pain of childhood, and that's where it sort of that's where it can end,
And were you aware that she might do something like that? Did you have, or was it just out of the blue?
Well, I knew how low she was, and I was part of her kind of coming out, if you like, as a victim of abuse.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's an incredible story. It should be made into a film, really. But I was aware of her mental health issues. I was aware that she was low, and rightly so. I mean, the pain that she went through and the abuse that she suffered was, second to none. But, awful. No human being should have to go through that. So, of course, I was aware that she was low, and but I was running my restaurant, just opened the restaurant, so my only sort of advice, all I could say was come to me, come and work with me, and let's, I'll take care of you, and that never happened. But she called me, and this is another thing about sort of mental health issues. She called me, it was like, I was aware that she was unwell and was suffering, because we would have lengthy conversations on the phone about her sadness and about how she felt. And on the weekend that she died, I didn't take the call on the Friday, and then on the Saturday, she drove her car into the sea over a cliff in a storm.
Fucking hell.
I don't. So I was aware, and then I wouldn't say that I felt guilty for not taking that call, because I think that one conversation might save that person's life for that moment in time. However, those feelings have to be addressed. They wouldn't have gone away. Yeah, exactly. They would never go away. But so. Yeah, of course I was aware that she was. I'm aware that lots of my friends have suicidal thoughts, but there doesn't. It's you would imagine that you could just go to the doctor and say, I'm not feeling very well. I feel sad, and it seems to me that what happens is they put they have, in my experience, friends of mine, it's medication, and that's what happens. And then I've had friends that have spent years kind of numbed by the situation and like lack of any feeling. And then other friends who've chose not to do that, but suffered immensely, but still with no therapy or no support, or, and sometimes it feels like it's not until it's too late that help is given. Why can't we just go? Like, I've got a sore throat. It's been there for 3 days. I go to the doctor. They might give me some penicillin.
Yeah.
I've been feeling shit for a week, like really shit. Like, I'm crying all the time. I don't want to go to work. I kind of know why I feel like that because, my boyfriend's left me for a pop star, but,
mentioning no names.
Mentioning no names. No, so circumstantial grief and circumstantial depression. But you know full well, if you go to the doctor and you say to them how you're feeling, they're going to prescribe you some tablets that will affect your life for a very long time. What I want to be able to do is when I'm feeling shit for 3 days, I want to go to the doctor and say, I'm feeling shit, mate. I've been really down. I can't get over this. And they say, oh, you're in the wrong surgery, mate. You need to be over there in the mental health clinic, which is always available for us as human beings to go and talk about how we feel, because there isn't that space. And, like friends of mine who, like, especially friends like with addiction, and that moment where they're like, I'm ready, I'm ready to get some help. And you arrive at the GPs and they're like, come back in 3 weeks, and you're just like,
yeah.
Like, how could you say that to a person who's like this unwell?
Yeah, I know.
And then they, like I say, the best they can do is feed them with meds. And, I don't know, it feels like there needs to be a reform of that aspect of our health service and healthcare, because I believe that a 15-minute chat with someone that's qualified to help you through a moment of grief or pain, or a lot, or not even a moment, a lifetime of grief or pain, should be ready available to every single person who pays their taxes or who puts their national insurance in it. Because, I might not need treatment for cancer through my life, but I might need treatment when I'm sad, or when I feel like I just need to talk to someone that like isn't my mate, or is someone that's qualified to guide me through that pain.
Yeah, I think investment is what's needed. They need to have proper investment in the NHS and for mental health treatments and all, because what happens is because they're in the pockets of the chemical companies, the pharmaceutical companies, so they
absolutely.
So they want to straight away. They go, oh yeah, I'm going to bung you on this, and that's going to pay my mortgage, and that's going to. So if you take that away and have proper investment in these services, I think the world would be such a better place. But it's greedy cunts that don't care about people.
Yeah, but I mean, look at you in a sense that you've acknowledged recently. You're nearly 50. That you had some issues in school that perhaps if there was someone you could have talked to them about, that might not have progressed through all of your life, and there might not have been how shit you feel now for the actions that you've taken, or where is that and it should be about anything. If you recognize that you're like, I mean, unwell is quite a sort of, I don't know whether that's the right term, but feeling unwell or feeling like something's not right within you as a human being is equal in my eyes as sort of saying, my toe's got a bunion on it, can you remove it? It's painful and it hurts me, and it stops me from running around after my kids. Well, grief and depression can stop you from running around after your kids, but you still just have to crack on. It's like, I don't know, it's a strange thing. But I guess, like again, we said, we're kind of still bogged down with ancient ways of living, even though we've moved on technologically, and it just feels like more work to be done.
Well, we feel like people have been talking about looking after yourself for years, since I was a kid. Like you had Mr. Motivator in the morning getting you up and getting you exercising, but that's only 30 odd years ago, and this feels like the first generation of people that are actually striving to make actual changes to our behaviours, to the way we look at each other, the way we interact with each other. And so we won't benefit really, but the next generation will. So all this work that we're doing is to benefit people going forwards, So it's even though we won't see it probably, but I think it's doing good. At least we're trying. Well, the majority of us are anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, and asking questions and feeling confident enough to sort of, potentially take down the status quo, even though it feels like an impossible task.
Yeah, well, we talk about that, and we've talked about that loads. I mean, you need to get rid of the 5 white racist paedophiles that run the world. Once that happens, maybe the system will change. We were saying, even if you got a woman in there, like to have a woman running things up there. But then you're like, yeah, but she'd probably be as big a cunt as the rest of them. That's how she got there.
Well, especially if she,
you
I mean, you got to remember that women, Donald Trump didn't get into power because he just got the male vote. There's women out there voting for him too, So it's this, So how we take them down is a different question. I mean, who knows?
We'll do our best. We'll do what we can.
We'll do our best to keep on fighting.
We will. This has been fucking amazing. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Absolutely.
I've got to be honest, because obviously you're Jade's best mate, and we've hung out and drunk and things, and it was like, I genuinely was like, oh, how the fuck is this going to play out? But it's been fucking great. I've loved it. Thank
Good.
you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's very natural, and thank you for inviting me. And
it's my pleasure.
Kudos to you for sort of giving women and people the space to sort of share their thoughts, and that you're listening and taking it on board. And
I love it. I've loved this. This has been great. Where can people find you on? Are you on the socials?
The usual socials, just Rebecca Wyn Kelly, and that's it all over. That's the socials. Apart from Twitter, I don't do Twitter. I feel a little bit like that's not the right place for me.
I wouldn't go on Twitter at the minute. It's on fire. It's a proper bin fire at the minute. It's not the place. Yeah.
Lush to speak to you, Rich, and I'm sure I'll see you over the next couple of days in your boxer shorts having a cup of coffee in the morning at some point.
Produced by Paul Daniels at pauldaniels.tv.